All right, Alexander, let's talk about the...
They make an excellent point in this video about how the MoU was a trap by Trump for the Iranians. A trap that's not going to work, by the way.
All right, Alexander, let's talk about the situation with the United States and Iran. The MoU is crumbling or has disintegrated. Is there an MoU? The United States is actually saying, now as the markets are opening on Monday, the U.S. is saying that the MoU is still holding. It's still talks are proceeding. All is good. Friday, as the markets were closing, and we know from NBC News that the Trump administration did not want to announce the strikes into Iran until after the markets closed. But as the markets closed, we got a whole lot of strikes, and then we got the Iran retaliations. We have the IRGC hitting tankers that are taking the southern route instead of their approved routes. A weekend of strikes and counterstrikes and fighting between both sides. What are your thoughts?
I think that there is a powerful faction in Iran which concludes, I think rightly, that Iran has been played here, in the sense that they...
Remember early in the Iran war when Iran agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz? Like, it was less than a month in, and I was like, are they stupid? That's all your leverage, the Strait of Hormuz. Don't just open it for nothing, getting nothing in return. And I was so angry at it because I was angry at Iran because what they did was so stupid. It's type of stupidity that makes me angry. It's just screwing over your entire country through your stupidity. And in the end, the Strait of Hormuz didn't open, and it was all fine. I will say that this MoU, this opening the Straits of Hormuz with no toll, I didn't think it was great for Iran either. But they'd already held the Strait of Hormuz closed for 3.5 months, so they'd already accomplished a lot of what they wanted, and the MoU was in Iran's favor, so I was willing to give them a pass. But I still thought that it was stupid to open the Strait of Hormuz with no tolls. It's like that's giving Trump a big present.
They presented to the Americans this MoU, which contained all of these enormous apparent concessions by the Americans. And what the Iranians are now starting to understand is that the Americans signed the MoU with only one purpose: to get the Strait of Hormuz reopened.
Exactly. That has been Trump's #1 goal since the war started. And he succeeded for a tiny bit, but now it's closed again.
And that they have no interest or intention of moving forward with any other part of the MoU. They're not going to repay any money to Iran. They're not going to freeze any assets. They're not going to lift any sanctions. They're not going to do any one of these things. So, and of course, the Israelis continue their...
By the way, yes, they are. They're going to do every one of those things, but it'll be in August. Once, because the oil shock will hit by the end of July, beginning of August, and then Trump will be forced to capitulate. Like I've said all along, but not before then.
Pressure on Hezbollah in Lebanon, and have just come to an agreement with the Lebanese government, which is Christian-dominated and therefore hostile to Hezbollah, which basically, an agreement which basically requires Hezbollah to disarm and concedes Israeli control of large parts of southern Lebanon. So I think there is a faction within the IRGC which has been looking at all of this.
I can look into that afterwards about a deal in Kazakhstan for minerals. But Trump does make deals, and it wouldn't be surprising. It's not even necessarily corrupt or nefarious. Not necessarily, but possibly.
They're saying this is really... we've given away our most important piece of leverage. So they're striking at tankers that have been trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. They're trying, in other words, to create issues with the Strait of Hormuz again. They are probably trying to lay mines or talking about laying mines. And the result is that the MoU, exactly as you say, is starting to crumble. There is still within Iran
about getting around stuff with China about rare earths. No, there is no getting around China on rare earths, because rare earths is not about mining the rare earths. There's plenty of places around the world that mine rare earths, but everywhere that mines rare earths sends that rare earths to China for refining. They have a monopoly on the refining of rare earths. So just because they set up a rare earth mine somewhere doesn't mean we've gotten out of China's control. and it'll take us at least 5 years to break to start making rare earths in America again, because we just fallen so far behind and outsourced everything.
Group, probably Ghalibaf, maybe Arakshi too, who on the contrary are saying, and Pezeshkian obviously, who are saying, well, let's not give up on this yet. We've got the MoU. The Americans conceded an awful lot. Let's see whether we can take this thing forward. Let's see whether the negotiations lead anywhere, and is still acting as a force for restraint. As it becomes...
Yeah, I think the moderates in Iran are retarded, and only reason Iran has gone out and has won this war is because they were basically sidelined, the moderates. The moderates, the more they're involved, the more they just fuck things up, because the United States isn't dealing in good faith. And they're idiots. They've been betrayed again and again and again and again by Trump. Last year, this year, now with MoU, and the moderates still fall for it. You have to think that some of them might actually be corrupt and paid off by the United States with how stupid they're acting.
It's increasingly clear that, in fact, the MoU process is going to go nowhere. I think you're going to see the hardliners in Iran win out.
I agree. They'll win out, and then in August, all the hardliners' demands will be met by the United States. It's desperate and getting completely crushed by the oil shock.
There's a big military buildup that has been taking place and continues to take place from the United States into the region.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to result in, or what the reason for that is. Many people suspect, many analysts suspect some sort of a renewed large-scale operation.
Yeah.
Some analysts say ground forces. I don't think so, but
No.
a lot of the buildup is happening in Iraq.
Yeah.
We had these Iraqi raids into the green zone, the purging of politicians and officials,
Yes.
who I believe now it has been confirmed were working with Iran, at least an oil minister,
Yes.
and his team that seemed to have been working with Iran, that the Trump administration was not happy about. And so
Yes.
we had the raids into the green zone. But by the way, a lot of people think the green zone is, why would Iran-aligned Iraqi politicians be in the green zone? I mean, the green zone is not only U.S. embassy.
It's the head. It's where Iraq's government is run. So if you're in Iraq's government, you're in the green zone.
It's a huge area of land. It has the U.S. embassy, but also has all the politicians are there. The NGOs are living there. I mean, it's basically where all of these people are living. That's where they are.
Yeah.
But I think that was an interesting development. It shows that the Trump administration is using these 60 days and the MoU, in my opinion, to put a type of squeeze onto Iran. So they're looking at Iraq and they're saying, okay, let's try to remove Iranian influence in Iraq. Let's continue the military buildup. Let's continue to
Trump hasn't given up. There's no way the MoU as it is now is entirely in Iran's favor, and Trump doesn't want to live up to it. He doesn't, because that would be him recognizing that he's lost the Iran war. So of course he's trying to undermine it anyway. He has no intention to live up to it right now. What we need is an oil shock to force the United States to honor the MoU.
restock on our weapons and whatever we had in the Middle East. Let's pour weapons in there. We might need them after the 60 days. Let's look at point one of the MoU, which is the Lebanon ceasefire. Let's find a way to work around that. Okay, let's get the deal between Lebanon and Israel and tell Iran, here you go. Point number one, there has to be a ceasefire in Lebanon. Well, the Lebanese government and the Israeli government, they've signed a framework which says that Hezbollah needs to disarm. So we're throwing the ball back at you.
Yeah, that's the agreement in Lebanon is a big fuck you to Iran. You disarm your proxy. Yeah, that's one of the things the United States wanted, to disarm Hezbollah. And so they're basically, it's a condition that Iran will never go along with. So it's basically the ceasefire in Lebanon is a big fuck you to Iran, and Israel is not stopping anything in Lebanon.
Iran.
Yes.
And then you have what you said, which was the ways to work around Hormuz.
Yes.
By looking at the southern route, at the Oman route.
Yes.
And then, of course, the price of oil, which has gone down considerably, which does give the White House time and space.
Exactly. I think that is exactly. I think you summed it up precisely. I agree with you, by the way, about the
Not a lot of time and space.
events in Iraq. They're clearly a purge of pro-Iranian politicians in Iran. Of course, you can always talk about corruption. Corruption. There is everybody in Iraq is corrupt to a certain degree. Anybody in public life is corrupt. But ultimately, this is just the the rationale given for what is really a political purge. But you're absolutely right. That's exactly what's going on. And the American buildup is taking place. And the US never really planned, never really intended to implement the MoU. And the original supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the one who was killed by the Israelis on the first day of the 40-day war, he warned about this. He said, we must never, ever concede temporary ceasefires to the Americans. They will never implement the terms. They will always take advantage. It will just mean that we are prolonging the conflict, and that won't play out to our advantage.
Yeah, United States has practically never lived up to any of its side of these agreements with Iran. Only one thing they've done is lift the blockade on Iranian oil, which wasn't a very strong blockade to begin with.
Now, he was killed. There's been this unstable political situation in Iran itself because the new supreme leader is untested. He's probably been badly wounded. He doesn't have the authority of his father. There's been very heavy pressure from China to get the Strait of Hormuz reopened. The Chinese do not like the idea of straits and international waterways being closed because they worry that will create a precedent that the United States might one day use against them. So instead of sticking to the policy of the assassinated supreme leader, the Iranians got the MoU, which was, as we know, essentially set out their shopping list of demands. But of course, what they've discovered is that the Americans signed a document, but they're not really interested in implementing its terms. They're doing exactly what you said. They're coming up with workarounds, and they're conducting build-ups, and they're purging the friends of Iran in Iraq. So that's exactly what's happening. I think you've
the United States not acting in good faith.
Described it exactly correctly. The question is this: will the Iranians continue to be strung along in this way? Or alternatively, will the hardliners win, the people in the IRGC? I think that in Iran, the IRGC, the hardliners, have been greatly strengthened by what has happened over the last few months. They, after all, can argue that it was they who fought the Americans to a standstill. And in the end, I think they will prevail. And at some point over the next few weeks, we'll probably see the Strait of Hormuz essentially.
I think that the only reason hardliners let this MoU happen was to set up the moderates to fail. They said they'd never believed the United States would honor their side, and now they're being proved correct. And so they're going to take control of the process again. And that's why the Straits of Hormuz are closed. Let's jump to another video that was very interesting on this subject.
Harm on anybody. How are you?
Good, man. Good. Do you see the terror attack? They're calling it a terror attack. We don't know. It's not confirmed yet, but they're treating it as a terror attack in Monaco. Did you see it just now?
No, not just now. No,
Who would have expected it to be in Monaco?
A Monaco terror attack.
Just now.
Monaco. Yes. Well, I think we can expect probably more of this as time goes on for various reasons.
Yeah, let's see. 3 people injured. We're going to show you footage.
Meanwhile, the oligarchs are making deals to not bring chip manufacture to the U.S. and instead work out a deal to do it in India, etc. Well, it's cheaper to do it in India. And so, of course, they're going to try to do that.
Footage and images now. The explosion was just over an hour ago. The information is just coming out right now. Meanwhile, so while there's that explosion in Monaco, did you hear what Defense Minister Katz said? He said, so in the last 12 hours, we had attacks in Syria, number one. We had, so that's in Monaco. We had attacks in Syria by the IDF. Now, the IDF says they were responding to an attack by Syrian militants. So they says Israel acting.
Israel says Iran attack imminent, bombs Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. That's just Israel for you.
Against armed terrorists. It was Syrian militants who violated the 1974 Israeli-Syrian separation of forces agreement by entering the buffer zone. In December 2024. Okay, they're going back to why they invaded Syria in the first place. Put that aside. So that's them. The Turkish Foreign Ministry and the Israeli Foreign Ministry are having a tweeting war. But there was an attack by the IDF against a village, and they advanced into it, and I think they killed 2 or 3 gunmen there. And then there's bombing in Lebanon again. It's a daily occurrence right now. There's bombing in Gaza as well.
They did the mother of all bombings in the last 24 hours. I don't know if you saw the village.
The tunnel, the underground. Yeah, can you guys play this?
Really reminded me of the Beirut blast in 2020. There was, anyway.
Yeah, it was a massive blast that happened. And then on top of it, I'm just reading more information on the Morocco's blast. The victims are of Russian and Ukrainian national origin. That's in Morocco. And on top of it, there's mobilization of the militias in Yemen against the Houthis. So we're seeing instability everywhere.
Don't forget the thing in Iraq where they are supposedly doing all this anti-corruption stuff against Iranian, anti-corruption against Iranian affiliated elements of their government.
Yep, they're doing that.
This is a Sunni Shiite thing right now. So
Let's see one in Lebanon. That's massive.
Yep.
yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, so
They hit something that's used to make explosives.
Lebanon has, they were developing, and I talked about this in my book on the matter. They were developing Octogen, which is HMX, a highly explosive fuel for long-range precision-guided munitions. This was part of what was known as the Precision Project in 2016. The IRGC was overseeing it. Hezbollah was building these systems. The idea was they were going to mass-produce long-range ballistic missiles with the idea that if war came again, they would be able to target very reliably the very critical civilian infrastructure of Israel. And now the Israelis spent the last 10 years trying to blow up the depots where the HMX was stored and where the precision-guided munitions are. But, the Hezbollah has quite a robust arsenal.
About the Monaco terrorist attack. Terror attack in Monaco reportedly targeted a Ukrainian oligarch, owner of call centers specializing on scam operation targeting Russia, but also some Western countries. The oligarch, his wife, son, all transported to the hospital in critical condition. Suspect at large. Well, if you, it might be Russia that decided to take this guy out because he's scammed a lot of Russians.
And I don't believe the Israelis have gotten anywhere near the full number that they think they've gotten.
Meanwhile, you've got the defense minister of Israel, Defense Minister Katz. He said, if Iran attacks Israel with ballistic missiles in response to actions in Lebanon, the IDF will respond and is preparing to operate independently, so even without American support. We have targets to strike in Iran, and the IDF is prepared and on alert, but we will not interfere with the U.S. president's course of action vis-a-vis the Iranians. So, in other words,
he also said something about a third war. There was a quote that I just read before we logged on. I exited out of it, but it was an RT, and I thought it was Katz who said... maybe I can pull it back up 1 second.
Find it. I'll read another statement.
Here it is. If Iran attacks us, it'll be third war. It's third war. I don't have my readers on. If Iran attacks us, as in Israel, it will be its third war. I don't know if that's a translation.
Yes, if Iran attacks Israel, Israel will... War, of course. They will strike back against Iran.
Era, or if they mean World War.
A third war. I think you're reading another translation of my statement, I assume, because they're translating it from Hebrew. So mine says if Iran attacks us in response, the IDF will respond and is prepared to operate independently. Maybe it's the same one, but he also says in the same press conference that the IDF has an intent to occupy Lebanese territories, but will not withdraw a millimeter onto Hezbollah's descent. But then he says
Israel doesn't intend to withdraw no matter what. There's a reason it's leveling villages in Lebanon.
The IDF has no intent of withdrawing from all areas as occupied in the last 3 years, including Syria, Gaza, and Lebanon.
Yeah.
And he says the U.S. the U.S. is in agreement.
Yeah. I just want to remind your audience what's going on here is for the Israelis, and this is sort of the consensus, even among those who don't like Netanyahu and who don't necessarily support what Israel's been doing in Israel. There is a consensus. They refer to this as the Gaza model, and they don't view it as ethnic cleansing. They don't view it as any of the things the rest of the world is accusing them of. The Israeli security apparatus believes they need to extend their security buffer into southern Israel, southern Lebanon from northern Israel, and that is why they are not going to give back. They may give back some of the periphery, but the core of the territories that they've taken in southern Lebanon,
Israel only ever grows.
Not be giving back. And I contend the reason they destroyed the target that they did, which delivered this massive, incredible spectacle of explosions, is because they are trying to render as much of southern Lebanon uninhabitable as possible. And if they can use Hezbollah munitions to do it, they're going to, and that's what they did. And you're going to see this play out. They're not giving up the core territories that they've captured either in Lebanon.
But in August, they're going to be forced to give it up. Iran is going to have the United States over a barrel about oil, and then Israel will be forced out of Lebanon.
Syria or in the Gaza Strip. And that's the way it's going to be, unfortunately, for everybody, because the Iranians are not going to abide by this.
Are we seeing a move from direct warfare to proxy warfare? We've got the movements in Yemen. KK, Lisa, whoever's on from the producers. JJ, can you guys play the footage from Yemen we were playing earlier while we speak? Are we seeing the militias being activated? We're seeing the strikes in 3 territories in the last 12 hours, Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. And we've got the warnings, essentially Israel saying, hey, Iran, if you attack us, we'll attack you back, but let us do our thing in these territories, in this case referring to Lebanon. Are we going to see a shift away? They tried to beat Iran directly through direct warfare. It failed. Will it go back to proxy warfare, but more aggressive proxy warfare?
Yeah, what's going on is the proxy warfare is part of the
Remove the audio, guys.
the proxy warfare is part of the escalation, and whenever they can't either side get a clean shot on the other, rather than just de-escalate and call it a day, they start escalating in these sort of indirect ways, one of them being the proxy war. But it is my contention that it's basically decentralizing the war and thereby expanding it. And that might not be what the intention is, but that is what the results will be. And that is why, Mario, I am convinced that this war is not coming to an end anytime soon. And I actually think that we are, once again, ridiculously arming the Kurds of northern Iraq, and we are preparing to send them, I think, into Iran to try to do some insane, stupid, cockamamie Bay of Pigs style pre-failed mission into Iran as a prelude to eventually, I think, trying to insanely, stupidly land U.S. Marines somewhere along the coastline
It's going to be an interesting 2 months.
of Iran. This thing is not over yet, I don't think.
I just don't think the Kurds on Iran.
Well, the Kurds of
think that
Iran
will
are not
happen.
going to. The Kurds of Iran are not
Any
going to be
Kurds,
okay
they-
with
no-
this.
no
The
Kurds are
Iraqi
gonna
Kurds.
attack
Now, the Iraqi Kurds are excited about it to a point, but
They've
I
been
don't.
pummeled. They've been pummeled. If they saw the US can't beat Iran, they're going to beat
Yeah,
Iran.
I don't know.
Yes,
There's some funny business going on behind the scenes. A lot of pay.
You pay off the leaders of the Iraqi Kurds millions and millions of dollars to go send off their men to die in Iran. That's the way it works.
Playoffs. A lot of things are changing hands. Now, initially what happened the first time, I am told by somebody who would know, that when we, a few months ago, started handing out weapons to the Iraqi Kurds with the idea they were going to rally and do this attack into Iran, they took the weapons and then they took the money and then they left. But for whatever reason, we are now back at this situation, which tells me somewhere, some way along the way, the CIA, the intelligence community feels like they now have partners on the ground that are more reliable. I don't believe it's going to work out. I think it'll be a disaster if they do it. It'll be just like the Bay of Pigs. It'll be a nightmare. But it is my view that this thing is not yet ending. I think that they're now escalating in these unconventional proxy ways, and that's going to eventually all kind of come back together on a higher rung of the escalation ladder in a more direct way. But I think that the proxy escalation is the first step.
From the US walking away to the CENTCOM commander going to freaking Lebanon, to a new deal signed in Lebanon that contradicts the one signed in Iran, to clashes in the Strait of Hormuz.
No, just look at Syria. The uprising began, 2011? And finally, the Syrian Assad government fell in 2024. It's it took them like 15 years or 14 years to get Syria out, and all that time we're at that now. The target is Iran. At that same process, it doesn't matter if any of these plans will work. It means they're going to try one, try another, try a third. Just look at what's happened with Russia. They tried the Ukraine war. It doesn't work, so they're trying the drone warfare, and it's they are just, even when it's clear Ukraine's losing on the ground, they're not giving up. They just want to extend the war. They do more, like 25th, 24th version, round of sanctions against Russia. That's what I mean. Never stop. Another round of sanctions, another round of sanctions. Just attack the enemy again and again and again, and eventually it'll work. It took over a decade for Syria, but the problem is you don't have a decade for Russia and Iran. Because the United States will collapse before then. So I don't think they're succeeding in either of those places.
From the US walking away to the CENTCOM commander going to freaking Lebanon, to a new deal signed in Lebanon that contradicts the one signed in Iran, to clashes in the Strait of Hormuz, to Israel attacking more countries instead of just attacking Iran and Lebanon, now attacking Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. Not that it stopped Gaza anyway, but Syria is a new one. Now, I want to just to be clear, I would like to say the attack in Syria was a one-off. It was a very limited attack, very different to the one we saw a few months ago. So I want to be fair, make sure I share the facts with the audience. And there's a high possibility that there were gunmen that attacked Israeli positions and the Israelis were responding. Impossible to know if you're asking the Israelis self-defense. If you ask the Syrians, the Israelis were moving into territory. But the big piece of news is not about what happened in Syria. It's how the Emiratis responded to what happened in Syria. They condemned it. So the Emiratis. You saw that
we talked about this. We talked about this last time I was on, where the UAE, which got way too close to Israel and the U.S., are now in a position where the Emiratis have to now.
Yeah, it sends a signal, but not a very strong signal. It costs nothing to do condemnation. And they might have warned Israel ahead of time and gotten Israel's permission to do the condemnation.
Kind of be like, well, we got to be kind of the middle player here. We got to get along with
That's what I said. That's exactly.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We agreed
You're
for
right.
once. We agreed for once.
Well, we agree more, I think, than the audience
True.
realizes. But on the issue of the war, I think that this thing is not over yet. And by the way, I don't think that's any fault of the vice presidents. I think Vice President Vance has been doing his best
He's just in a terrible position.
within the framework of working for Donald Trump to push forward a deal. But it just sounds to me like events on the ground, as well as the Israelis, as well as even the Iranians, don't really want a deal. I actually am increasingly of the mind that not even the Iranians really want a deal, because they have calculated that A, Trump is unreliable, B,
Yes, absolutely. And Trump has proven that just with what happened with this Lebanon ceasefire and trying to open the southern route through the Strait of Hormuz.
Trump has already tried to whack them. How can they be sure he won't try again in the future? And C, they now know the actual depth of our desperation when it comes to the mere threat of closing down the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians understand, I think, that if things keep going as they are, with the strait being not open, let's just say, maybe partly open, but not fully open.
No, it dropped significantly. The strait is
exactly.
almost
exactly.
to the level of
So my point
during
is, the
war.
Iranians are smart, and they've realized, holy cow, in another 60 days at most, the American economy will implode. Then the American voters are
Exactly. I said 6 months. Iran holds the Strait of Hormuz closed 6 months. They win. They're now 4 months down. They only have 2 months to go.
Trump. They're going to kick out his party. The Democrats will take power. They're not going to do what Trump wants to do. So we might be able in Iran to actually, in the long term, if we stick it out, we might actually be able to defeat Trump. And
To regime change Trump. You know the Democrats are going to impeach him. It's what they do. They're rabidly against Trump. And if they win Congress, first thing they do is impeach Trump. And by starting a war that wrecks the global economy without approval from Congress, they've Trump has given the Democrats an impeachable offense to use against him.
be able in Iran to actually, in the long term, if we stick it out, we might actually be able to defeat Trump and stop the war in the long run, because there's no way the Democrats are going to continue Trump's war. So I think the calculus now is Israel clearly never wanted a deal. Trump was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Vance wanted the deal, but he's not in charge. And the Iranians now have figured out we don't need to get a deal to win. We can actually pull this out where we just drag it out and make the American economy collapse, make the global economy collapse, and then we can come out. Because the key for Iran...
Yes, they need to make... it so the oil market reaches the point of shortage. So there's no more reserves, and Trump is desperate enough to finally cave in to their demands. Trump is never going to let Iran control the Strait of Hormuz unless he's forced to. And you need an oil shortage for that. It'll happen in August.
regime is survival. That is winning for them. And the way to survive long term is by making sure the Americans can never again ever try to assassinate their leaders.
I also said that holding the Straits of Hormuz closed 6 months, Iran establishes a deterrence more powerful than any guarantees from the United States. It's no one will want to go through the pain that we're going to go through this summer again. What we've had so far, it's not been the real oil shortage. The oil price has been suppressed. No, when you see oil spike to 150, 200, yeah, that's the war nearing its end.
What I think the
regime-
calculus is.
It was. The
Oh, it
regime,
is.
their calculus was to survive. Now it's to become a regional power.
Yeah, but
There's a
they
big
can't do
difference
that
between
with
surviving
Trump.
and
They
becoming
can't do that
power.
with Trump. Trump is clearly not going to let this happen. Trump is not interested.
But he can be forced to. Oil shortages, fuck what Trump wants. He's going to be forced to surrender.
Rubio both. Listen, what happened with the last round of explosive, when we started attacking again, it was when Iran attacked that Singaporean ship. Why did Iran attack the Singaporean ship? Because the Americans goaded the Omanis to get these ships to start going through the Omani route,
Yep.
and the Iranians knew that was a challenge to their perceived dominance over the strait. That's their one key leverage point over the Americans, is the de facto, control over.
And he was stupid on Trump's part. That's what led to the Strait of Hormuz being closed again. He should have just let it go under Iranian control. That's where it's going to end up anyway. But this the whole point of it. The whole point is we don't have a final agreement right now. Is Trump isn't ready to concede to Iran. So of course he's going to try shit like opening a southern route through the Straits of Hormuz.
Over the strait, and letting the Omanis establish an alternative route right now would undermine that. And that's when everything started ripping open again, because the Americans started getting angry. They started shooting. Everybody started shooting each other. It was over the Strait of Hormuz because the Iranians know that the Americans will never allow Tehran to have any semblance of control over the strait.
Never willingly, but they will be forced to.
All right. So if Oman, this is something that I'm kind of disagreeing with some guests about. If Oman decides to open their side of the Strait of Hormuz for free, as it was before, what happens then? This is
Iran won't allow that. It'll shoot ships. If Oman wants to join with Iran to charge tolls, that's fine. But Oman opening their side of the straits for free is the same as it preempts. No one will pay the toll to Iran if you have a free way to go through the straits. So it's a direct challenge to Iran, and so Iran will attack the ships. Anyway, I think that does it for the Iran section. We know where we are. It's going to continue with this bullshit. The Strait of Hormuz being mostly closed for the next 2 months. On and off, depending on what Trump does. And there might be some rounds of escalation. Basically the same thing it's been for the last 2-3 months. It's just small rounds of fire exchange. Strait of Hormuz remains closed. And we have to wait till it's all resolved in August. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye.